Good afternoon. My name is Claudia Pors. I am with DES and with Alianza, and I'm so excited to welcome you all to this year's Hispanic Heritage Month Proclamation event and kickoff. So thank you all so much for coming today. The theme of this year's Hispanic Heritage Month is Unidos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation. This month, we will be hosting a series of virtual events that will unpack what this word Unidos and inclusivity means to us. And for those who don't know, Unidos means united in Spanish. So for the next few weeks, we'll be hosting a series of virtual events where Alianza members throughout the county will be sharing our stories, where we're from, what we call ourselves, and what it means to be part of the Hispanic community. We also will culminate at the very end with an outdoor, in-person party at Courthouse Plaza with food and music, so we're so excited for you to come to that as well. This morning, or this afternoon, we have a great lineup of speakers and guests, so it is my honor to turn the podium over to County Board Member Libby Garvey.
Thank you so much, Claudia. It's great to be here. And I won't take too long because I think we've got some great performances coming up, which I am really looking forward to. I don't know, it says here that I'm supposed to do recognitions, but I don't know if there's anybody here that I need to recognize specifically. Perhaps, I can't quite see. Matt DeFerranti, I think that's you, but the light is behind you. My colleague, Matt DeFerranti, is here. That's great. I'm so glad you're here. And, I want to also certainly acknowledge Alianza members and the leadership. Miriam Gerardo, is Miriam here? Because I haven't had a chance to meet everybody. You met me at the door. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. Odalis Barrios. Odalis, great. And Erica Serrano. And then also newest members, Eduardo Achach. Did I pronounce that correctly? It's great to see you. Okay. And Hema Arana. Right there, all right, and I apologize. And Claudia, I did recognize you because you introduced yourself, and I remember. Thank you so much. Yes, let's give them a big hand. Because they've really helped plan the festivities. And, this is great. For me, in some ways, it may sound sort of odd, but Hispanic Heritage Month feels a little bit like a family affair. Certainly because of my greater Arlington family, but I have a niece who's half Mexican, I have a granddaughter who's half Ecuadorian, and a grandson who's half Salvadoran. And this is kind of my family, which is the way I think a lot of us are today, and it's wonderful because this is a culture that is so varied and diverse and brings so much vibrancy to our community here and to my own family. I've had some really spectacular trips to Latin and South America, which I will never, ever forget. So it's great to be here. Thank you all for making this happen. I think there's some people observing, virtually. I think this is being broadcast, which is great. So I have a proclamation to read, and I have brought up my reading glasses because I can almost do it without them, but it's a little tricky, so I think I'll put the glasses on, excuse me. So this is a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. So whereas Hispanic people make up 19% of our nation's population and 15% of Arlington County government employees, and we thank you for strengthening our economy and communities with your mosaic of cultures and talents. And whereas the Latino diaspora is already shaping U.S. politics as the Hispanic vote increased by 6% in the 2020 election cycle, and whereas the Latinx community is leading conversations about gender equality, sexual diversity, systems of oppression, including systemic racism and colorism, social justice, and human rights in their communities abroad and locally, and whereas Asian Latinx, Black Latinos, Afro-Latinx, Afro-Caribbean, people of African descent with roots in Latin America have all distinguished themselves by the richness of their multidimensional and multifaceted identities through their prolific achievements in literature, performing arts, film, writing, music, among so many other fields. And whereas indigenous communities from the American Southwest to Mexico to Tierra del Fuego have exemplified the power of reclaiming their multicultural and multilingual roots by raising their voices not just as an echo of times past, but as present and active members of today's society. And whereas Arlington recognizes human mobility as the right to freedom of movement protected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and as the foundation of our own democracy. Now, therefore, Katie Crystal, Chair of the County Board of Arlington, Virginia, does hereby proclaim September 15 through October 15, 2022 as Hispanic Heritage Month, and in Arlington County, and urge our residents to join and support the county's celebration of the rich heritage of our Hispanic residents. So I'm very pleased to read this. I will leave this for you, if that's all right here. And, I find reading this particularly, I'm active in some groups working with food security here, farm groups, and working with farmers, including indigenous farmers, which, not very many. But I'm really starting to appreciate more and more how much this culture brings to us, and I think for the future, for preserving the climate, well, not preserving the climate, it's changing, but preserving our sustainability here and going back to some old ways of doing things which are so much more healthy to all of us and to Mother Earth. So thank you so very much. Thanks.
Thank you for that wonderful statement, Ms. Garvey. My name is Hema Arana, and I'm one of the newest members of Alianza. And I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Betilde Munoz-Pogosian. Dr. Munoz-Pogosian is the director of the Department of Social Inclusion of the Secretariat to Access to Rights and Equity in the Organization of American States. And in her role, Dr. Munoz-Pogosian is responsible for directing the work of their OAS in matters of social inclusion and equity, as well with special consideration to populations in vulnerable situations. In addition, Dr. Munoz-Pogosian is an accomplished author in issues of Latin America, as well as one of the founding members of the network of Latin American female political scientists, No Sin Mujeres, a project that seeks to promote and empower the work of women dedicated to Latin American political science. Please give Dr. Betilde Munoz-Pogosian a warm Arlington County welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Hema, for that kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation to join you in this Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation ceremony. Let me start by saying that I have given hundreds and hundreds of presentations and speeches in Washington, D.C., as well as throughout the Americas over the past 20 years of my career, but this is my first speech ever to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month. I am so humbled to use my voice to amplify the voices of more than 60 million people of Latin American descent. I am also thankful not just for the invitation, but also because in preparing to speak with you today, I have found an opportunity to dig deeper on the meaning of what it means in general and what it means to me to be Hispanic in the United States. It made me question whether the term Hispanic is applicable to all of us who came to the US from Latin American countries. It made me wonder how other people who are Afro-Latinos or who came from indigenous communities to this country, like me, from Latin America, like me, feel about the use of the label Hispanic. It also made me think of my own story of migration to this country and what it means to be a Venezuelan American. So many questions, and the simple response to most of them is that it is all more complex than we think. And in understanding and embracing that complexity is where we find real inclusion, or as the theme of this commemoration goes, the needed inclusion or inclusivity for a stronger nation. I wanted to start asking you one question, and that is, if you knew that if we count every Latin American person living in the US, that would be equivalent to the US being the second largest Latin American country in the world. With more than 60 million Latin Americans living in this country, we are second to Brazil and above all other Latin American countries in terms of populations. But the numbers sometimes can be deceiving. They hide our own diversity, our own collective and personal trajectories, history, challenges, and achievements. And this is the first point I wanted to focus on in these remarks, how we should all be conscious of our own diversity, respect it, and embrace it. Why do I say that? When we speak of Hispanic and Latino heritage, and I will go deeper on these categories in a bit, we speak of a rich, diverse, and complex diversity related to our own identities, our backgrounds, personalities, life experiences, and beliefs, all of the things that makes us who we are. Trying to see everyone as a homogeneous group under the Hispanic label takes away, I believe, from all the contributions we all bring to this country. So I want to invite you to really see the beauty of our diversity, the richness of our culture, and the contributions of our community. But here the invitation is double in the sense that I'm inviting you to continue the fight for our rights and recognition within the wider US society, but also to understand ourselves beyond imposed categories that often make our diversity invisible. Our racial, linguistic, religious diversity, our diversity of histories and cultural legacies, not just makes us unique, but enrich this nation. Celebrating it brings us closer to that perfect state of affairs where everyone feels respected, valued, and that they belong. So the first message is, let's use this opportunity to reflect and honor our own diversity, embrace it, and celebrate it so that the world also sees it. A second question I had for you today is whether you have ever thought of the difference between the term Hispanic and the term Latino. Moreover, have you thought of all the other categories in between and beyond these terms that express our real diversity? The term Hispanic is generally related to our linguistic history and the fact that we were colonized by the Spanish, who brought this language to this hemisphere. In other words, it is a term used to refer to people who speak Spanish. The term Latino, Latina, are the words that are preferred by people from Latin America whose first language is Spanish, whereas the term Latinx is preferred by people whether they grew up here or not, and whose first language is English, and those who are part of the LGBTIQA+ community. We should also be aware of our Afro-Latino brothers and sisters and those from the African diaspora who are also part of our community. As I mentioned in preparing to speak with you today, as I was preparing, it made me think how I saw myself within our larger community and made me realize that I always saw myself more as a Latina and saw my Afro-Colombian American friends or the Brazilian Americans living in my community or the people settling in this country from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, the Venezuelan Americans already doing politics in this country as Latinos too. But here, just wanted to reflect on the importance of language. Words matter, language matters, and I mention this to you because perhaps we should be careful with the use of these words because they can either perpetuate stereotypes, situations of inequality, and hide our diversity, or they can empower us to continue contributing to this country. And this is an ongoing conversation. Various surveys have shown that at least half of Hispanic or Latinos in the US prefer to use their country of origin to describe their identity, Venezuelan Americans, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, instead of Hispanic or Latino. Isn't that a richer way to show our diversity, our histories and backgrounds? These surveys also are showing us that the other half really doesn't have any attachments to the word Latino or Hispanic as a term. Could this mean that we are pushing the conversation to a new realm where our understanding of what it means to be Hispanic is also evolving? Beyond this, the point I want to make is that there are many ways to reflect our identity, and as we continue to debate identification issues, I believe we are in a position to move closer toward creating identities that are more personal and thus more reflective of our unique experiences, and what could be more American than that? So the second invitation is to expand our comprehension of what it means to be Hispanic, to use the category, but being aware and embracing all the differences that it contains. And perhaps, why not, push conversations so we either do away with labels or we use them, but always being conscious of our own personal experiences and identities. So the second message for you today is let's be aware of our labels, maybe even question them as they can impair our vision as to the huge diversity that we represent in this country. And finally, the last point I wanted to reflect on is how I see myself as part of our larger community. And let me use my personal story very briefly to illustrate the many intersecting identities we all have that makes all of us unique. I am a migrant in the United States, a citizen now of two countries, Venezuela and the US as well. I am from a beautiful city in Venezuela, full of people with a lot of spark, joy, and with the highest resilience levels, really, that I have seen, so much that they are able to find the positive side of the most precarious situation they face. The city's name is Maracaibo. I came to Florida in 1993, supposedly to stay temporarily, to study, go to school in Tampa. But in 1999, the tense political situation in our country of origin, Venezuela, kept us in the US a little longer. We were going to wait to see how things went in Venezuela before we made the decision to go back. But we never went back. So my story is maybe different than other migration stories. It is a story of a non-resolved migration process because we did not leave the country thinking that we would settle in the US. I am also a political scientist. My dream was always to be a lawyer, but since we were supposedly to go back to Venezuela and studying law was not an option for me, I decided to study the closest thing, political science. So many things I have learned, opportunities that have enriched my background and professional journey as a political scientist, and wonderful mentors along the way. Today, I have a consolidated career in public service where I apply all the knowledge and where I seek every opportunity to learn and contribute to my community. I am also a wife and mother, daughter and sister, and a friend of many beautiful people that I have met throughout my life in the US, beautiful people from Venezuela, but also from so many other countries. I am also a mother of multicultural children because my husband is from Armenia in Eastern Europe, and for 20 years we have known each other. I have navigated, and the children too, between Spanish, English, Armenian, French, and Russian as languages that we use to communicate. So this also illustrates the diversity of my own family. I am an international civil servant. This is really why I identify so much with the work you all do here in Arlington County, and why I'm so honored to accept this invitation to speak to you today. I also share your passion and commitment for equity and inclusion in our United States of America. And through this journey, I became, in 2015, the Director of Social Inclusion at the Organization of American States. I am responsible for an agenda of work that has become, due to the times we live in, the inequalities and violence that persist, a key priority issue for the region's agenda. And so I'm also an international civil servant, a lover of multilateralism with all its shortcomings, and very active in the equity, inclusion, and access to human rights agenda for the region. I am also an intersectional feminist. I firmly believe in equal rights between men, women, and of people of gender and sexual diversities before the law. But I also believe in the equality that needs to materialize in people's daily lives. So I work to unlearn social values that unfortunately were part of my growth and that limit women's possibilities. And every day I try to learn new ones that enhance what we as women, on my personal story, can deliver to the world. And I'm also committed to helping others achieve this too. So you see, I also illustrate the diverse identities that we represent, both individually and as well as collectively. Being Latina in this country means being recognized for all that I am, appreciated for my particular migration story, and accepted with all I have to contribute to this country. So the third message for you today is look to others' personal stories, cultural backgrounds, and everything that defines them, and celebrate them, not just during this month, but every opportunity you get. Having said all this, let me close with an invitation and a challenge. To be here with you today, after 20 years of public service, more than 50 countries visited, the career I have been able to put together, I had the support of many mentors and generous people who, along the way, with a piece of advice or an opportunity or simply sharing their wisdom, made me who I am today. Today, every opportunity I get, I also try to do the same for others, especially young people. And every time I do this, and they thank me, and Betty Gabriela knows this, I always tell them, don't thank me, pay it forward. This is central to who I am as a person, how I want to make a difference in the world. So the invitation is to thank others who have helped you, but also help someone else, pay it forward. Now the challenge, I wanted to challenge you to accept others in all their diversity and continue your own journey to understand what it means to you to be Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, Afro-Latino, among others. I also want to challenge you to make a difference in your own community. Let us get inspiration from so many other members of our community and question how we can also contribute, big or small, every action has an impact. And I like to also end with a quote by the great civil rights and community activist Cesar Chavez, who said, "To make a great dream come true, the first requirement is a great capacity to dream. The second is persistence." So I wish all of you a great capacity to dream and even greater capacity for persistence. Sí se puede. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Munoz Pogosian. As someone whose 23andMe lights up the globe, but then is summarized by American, Peruvian, Guatemalan, your words are so powerful to me, so thank you so much. Next up, I'd like to introduce our musical guest, Morena Panoso. Morena is a singer and guitar player specializing in folk music. She is an Arlington County resident who has served for the past 20 years as the musical director at Our Lady Queen of Peace Catholic Church. And she comes to us from El Salvador. She's a graduate of El Centro Nacional de las Artes, the National Art Center, and currently teaches Spanish and music at the Clarendon Child Development Center. Please welcome Morena.
Thank you for inviting me. My first song is from a Chilean composer, singer, songwriter, folklorist, ethnomusicologist. She was a pioneer of Chilean folk music. Her name is Violeta Parra. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Thanks to life which has given me so much. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado y en las multitudes al hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el oído que en todo su ancho graba noche y día, grillos y canarios, martillo, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y el abecedario con las palabras que pienso y declaro, Padre, amigo, hermano y luz alumbrando la ruta del alma del que estoy amando. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la marcha de mis pies cansados, con ellos anduve ciudades y charcos, praderas, desiertos, montañas y llanos, y la casa tuya, tu calle y tu patio. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio el corazón que agita su marco cuando miro el fruto del cerebro humano, cuando miro el bueno tan lejos del malo. cuando miro el fondo de tus ojos claros. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la risa y me ha dado el llanto. Así yo distingo dichas de quebranto, los dos materiales que forman mi canto y el canto de ustedes que es el mismo canto y el canto de todos que es mi propio canto. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Now I want to invite my friend to do some dancing. The next song is a joy for me to sing because it's from my country, El Salvador. El Torito Pinto, the spotted little bull. And I'm going to have the honor to have this wonderful lady with this beautiful dress dancing it. This is a traditional song from my country. And you are welcome to dance or clap. Échame el torito pinto, hijo de la vaca mora, tírame una corneadita delante de la señora. Échame el torito pinto, hijo de la vaca mora, tírame una corneadita delante de la señora. Échame pa' acá el torito, torito, patitas blancas, negrito de las orejas, bermejos tenés las puntas. Échame pa' acá el torito, torito, patitas blancas, negrito de las orejas, bermejos tenés las ancas. Échame el torito pinto que lo quiero capotear. Échame el torito pinto que lo quiero capotear. Ahí viene el torito pinto, hijo de la vaca mora, que quiere que yo le cante delante de la señora. Viene el torito pinto, hijo de la vaca mora, que quiere que yo le baile delante de la señora. Échame pa' acá el torito, torito, patitas blancas, negrito de las orejas, bermejo tenés las puntas. Échame pa' acá el torito, torito, patitas blancas, negrito de las orejas, bermejo tenés las ancas. Échame el torito pinto que lo quiero capotear. Échame el torito pinto que lo quiero capotear. Se va el torito. Gracias. Yay. Oh, do I keep on? Okay. Well, oh well. My next song then. So this is the last song, or do I keep going? Okay. Well, my next song is from Guatemala too. El son guatemalteco. And I welcome you to sing. Okay. Yo soy puro guatemalteco y me gusta bailar el son con las notas de la marimba que bien baila mi corazón. Cuando bailo con mi María hasta un grito me sale así. ¡Ajá! ¡Qué re chulas son las cinitas cuando las miro bailar el son! Con sus faldas levantaditas van zapateando con suave rumor. Yo ya me voy cantando, me voy bailando, me voy de aquí, tierra de amor. Mi Guatemala, tierra bendita donde nací. Yo ya me voy cantando, me voy bailando, me voy de aquí, tierra de amor. Mi Guatemala, tierra bendita donde nací. Yo soy puro guatemalteco y me gusta bailar el son con las notas de la marimba que bien baila mi corazón. Cuando así. ¡Qué rechulas son las inditas cuando las miro bailar el son! Con sus faldas levantaditas van zapateando con suave rumor. ¡Qué rechulas son las inditas cuando las miro bailar el son! Con sus faldas levantaditas van zapateando con suave rumor. Gracias, gracias. ¿De closiza? Ok. Bueno. My last song, Canción con Todos, Song with Everyone, that was written by Armando Tejada Gomez and Cesar Isela, and it was made popular by Mercedes Sosa, the greatest singer of all times. Canción con Todos, Song with Everyone. Salgo a caminar con la cintura cósmica del sur. Piso en la región más vegetal del tiempo y de la luz. Siento al caminar toda la piel de América en mi piel y alta en mi sangre un río que libera en mi voz su caudal. Sol de Alto Perú, rostro Bolivia, estaño y soledad, y un verde Brasil besa mi Chile, cofre mineral. Subo desde el sur hacia la entraña América y total. Soy la raíz de un río destinado a crecer y estallar. Todas las manos, todas, todas las voces, todas, toda la sangre puede ser canción en el viento. Canta conmigo, canta, latinoamericano, libera tu esperanza con un grito en la voz, en la voz. Sol de Alto Perú, rostro Bolivia, estaño y soledad, y un verde Brasil besa mi Chile, cofre y mineral. Subo desde el sur hacia la extraña América y total. Soy la raíz de un río destinado a crecer y estallar. Todas las manos, todas, todas las voces, todas, toda la sangre puede ser canción en el viento. Canta conmigo, canta, hermano americano, libera tu esperanza con un grito en la voz, en la voz. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Morena Panoso, everyone. That was lovely. Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone here for attending, everyone that's tuning in live, as well as acknowledge and thank our board members that attended. We have Takis Karantonis, as well as Matt DeFerranti, and thank you, Livy Garvey, for your warm introduction. I'd also like to share the upcoming events that we plan for Alianza's Hispanic Heritage Month. So next Thursday, we actually have a presentation from the Center of Local History, and they'll be discussing how they seek community donations to document the rich and vibrant history of Arlington County Latino Americans through the Arlington Latinos Archive Project. The following Thursday after that, we'll be hearing from 3 guest speakers, and they'll have a panel discussion talking about what it means to be Hispanic. And lastly, on October 13th, we will have a presentation from CPHD discussing Arlington County home ownership resources. So as Claudia also mentioned, we'll close off with an amazing presentation, performance from our Afro-Latino Brazilian drum band, Batala. And we hope that you all tune in for these next events. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.